Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you for the very first time this season, Survivor 44. That's right, I'm your host, Chris, and with me today is one of my two co-hosts. The other one's running a little bit late. Kahuna, how you doing today?
Very good, sir. I'm hyped. I'm excited. I'm ready to poop in the ocean. We got Survivor 44 coming. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. And what an episode. What a premiere. And I'm happy to chop it all up and break it down with you.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast because when I started talking to you about Survivor, and I know you've been covering Australian Survivor with me this season, you mentioned you haven't actually watched the Survivor US franchise in about 2 or 3 seasons now. So what was it like coming back to the show after, what was it, season 40, the last one you watched?
41. So I watched 41. I missed 42, 43, which, puts you in a really good stead to stay up to date and everything with the modern era of Survivor. But it's actually kind of refreshing because I feel like I've taken that break where you get little bit of a palate cleanse. I'm not burnt out. I'm not, and I'm coming in fresh and excited. Speaking of which,
we've got Jake coming out of the Spy Shack joining us here. Hey, Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Sorry I'm a bit late.
That's right. You were actually early for those that are in the comment section because for some other reason, whenever I arrange the lives, I have a little bit of like a time zone calculator that seems to never get Arizona time right, Jake. So we're going to have to like figure this out in the future. So you were early. You thought you were here at the right time is the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah. Our time zone in America is really dumb with Arizona. We're the only one that doesn't do daylight savings. I don't know why. So this wouldn't happen in any other state.
Yeah, 100%. Let's say hello to a few people here in the live. Chris, welcome back to the live stream, saying, hey, everyone, I'm hyped for the new season. Christian Gall says, hey, guys, Survivor 44, poop in the ocean, let's go. TNT all the way. Ryan B, welcome. We've got Gabe back here, very loyal listener. We've got Georgette. Georgette, welcome back to the stream. Always great to have you from the Survivor worldwide community over in Facebook. And then Chris saying, what a weird for you Survivor episode for you to watch after all this time away. Exactly. Yeah. And we're going to get into all of that. And then Christoph, I believe Christoph, you're from Poland, but you've got to remind me if I'm incorrect. I've got a bad memory. And he says, am I the only one who thinks this episode was a bit meh until the tribal council? We'll break it all down. I think we'll talk about all of this. And Ryan B is also from Arizona, so he feels your pain, Jake.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, like I said, Kahuna, this is Kahuna's first episode back. He hasn't watched since season 41. And what an episode to start off on, because Kahuna, we get the opening scene and we're introduced to Carolyn. And she
number one draft pick, my first female pick. And what an
Carolyn
intro.
after this episode.
I'm mixed. And I said that when I picked her, that high variance. She's either going to go far. I figured like the way she was a very outgoing character in the previous, I thought she would be the female Jam Jam. And boy, is she different. She is not the female Jam Jam, but she is a hell of a TV character. That's for sure. And to get the opening where they actually did the producer talking and breaking the fourth wall a little bit. And you can see that she is out there. She's something. Carolyn. I don't know if I love her, scared of her, whatever it is, but she's doing something, and she seems to have a little bit going on. Like she knows there's a bit of self-awareness, and I think in her profession that's always going to be the case. But starting out the gates hot with just not even knowing how to talk to a camera for Survivor is a hell of a start. I'm fascinated by Carolyn. I think that's the word. I don't know where I'm sitting, but she's interesting for sure.
Yeah, she's going to be a big character this season. You can just tell. Christoph here does say he is from Poland, I saw earlier. And also Dolores, welcome back. All the way, I believe, from Melbourne, Florida. Always good to have you here as well. And Gabe saying Kahuna picked the fun character at least. When you look at the three teams here, let's be honest. I've got Team Big Personality on my side, 100% with Yam Yam right out of the gate. I was like, I can't miss out on this guy. He delivered quite a bit for me as well. Willie, welcome back to the live stream as well, says, hey, Chris, is excited to see two other people. And those two other people are Jake and Kahuna, both experts.
Hey,
Jake is an expert at Survivor US, and Kahuna is an expert at Australian Survivor because he's been talking about it with us for the whole season and also the challenge. So you're going to see a lot more of Kahuna's face on the channel because we will be covering the challenge. Sorry. We'll be carrying the Challenge World Championship together for the season. So I'm really excited about getting Kahuna on from that. He's a day one fan. And also for those, before we get further into this episode that are not aware, we're lining up some really brilliant guests for the podcast, which has got me so hyped for the upcoming weeks. We've got next week with us Omar from Survivor 42 on the show. That'll be the first Survivor US contestant because we've had South African contestants, we've had Australian contestants on the channel, but Omar will be the debut Survivor US contestant all the way from Canada, obviously. And then the week following that, we've got Mike on the podcast, also from his season, which I'm really excited about. And then we've also got lined up Angel Cake from the Angel Cake Entertainment channel that all of you will know pretty well for the challenge. Is going to be talking some Survivor with us, and Peridium is also interested in coming on the channel. So I'm really excited because I'm a big fan of Peridium. So stay tuned in this upcoming weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, Jake, the format of the show at this point, it remains the same. It has been the biggest thing that I've seen when there's negative. We're going to talk about the negatives. We're going to talk about the positives. We're going to cover everything. But the fans that are complaining about the format. We get a same start, same challenge, same sweat and savvy. How did it play out for you now seeing this for a fourth season in a row?
I think knowing in my head, okay, the next two seasons are going to be a new cycle, filming cycle. So I'm just hoping that, okay, we did these two filming cycles, 41 through 44, of doing the, 18 person, 3 tribe, no tribe swap, beware advantages, whatever, not getting the food. I'm just hoping to see some new things in the future. But for this one, I think I'm okay with it being some of the same because, I liked the format last season. Obviously, I would love to see something new, but
did you hear, by the way, Jake, did you hear that CBS removed season 43 from, I believe, their Paramount Plus drop down? It's not even there. That's how much Jeff dislikes 43. And I just don't get it because I thought it was a bloody solid season, to be honest with you.
Chris, every day I'm starting to feel like you and I are kind of alone in that opinion.
Yeah,
like
must be.
At least among like the more like hardcore fans. I don't think everyone hates it as much as Jeff apparently does, but I think everyone just thinks it's very mediocre, which I disagree.
Jeff is interesting because I listened to Jeff's podcast. Did any of you two listen to Jeff's podcast, the first one that he did?
That's our competition, Chris. Come on. You can't
No, it's not. I tell you why. I don't normally listen to podcasts as much as I used to, right? Because it's very hard to listen to another show and not have their ideas in your head when you're talking about the episode. So I think that for us to have a fresh take and for people to come here and enjoy our opinions about the show, listening to other podcasts, it actually influences your thought pattern. But what is really good about Jeff's podcast, and I will promote it here a little bit, is that it gives behind the scenes of how they came up with the choices of Sweat and Savvy, why they did the no vote, 2 choices of no vote within the 3, all that stuff. He talks through that a little bit. And I've got to say, I've been hard on Jeff recently. I do think Jeff is off the pace with a few things. He's not as in touch with the fans, but I think him doing this, giving us more access to his thought patterns and what he does behind the scenes, I think is actually a good move. And I'm just hoping he does also take feedback on board when fans tell him certain things that they don't like about the show. Because I'm not too sure, because they had some softball questions given to Jeff here in the section of why people don't like Jeff, or, you know, asking Jeff a question like, do they poop? Where do they poop? Do they have toilets? Who cares? Who cares about that stuff? Like, that's, I don't care. They can give them a porta potty. That doesn't matter to me. It's more about, you know, what is how do we structure this game without breaking it? And I feel like Jeff wants to break it sometimes with the amount of things, Kahuna, that he puts on top of the show.
I mean, if you look at it, what it is now from where it started 22 years ago, whatever, it's a very big evolution, and I kind of dig that they're constantly trying to innovate. And if you imagine if we were still watching season 1 style today, it would be the most boring thing ever.
You have to innovate, yeah,
you have to like adapt and grow, and your audience changes, so you change the show, and it's kept its core principles and fundamentals. It's still the same game in essence, but they've tweaked and they've added and they've seen what works and what doesn't work. And after such a long track record, you hope that they know what works and doesn't. As I said, I'm a bit out in the last couple of seasons, but I mean, what I'm seeing from episode 1, I was excited by. As someone who's coming in a little bit fresh, I've still got the history and the nostalgia, and I know the essence of what Survivor is. And I saw that in the episode. It still felt like Survivor very much to me. As soon as I watched, I was like, yep. I know those comfy shoes, I'm home kind of thing. And there's some new things, which was, for someone like me, was really interesting and fascinating. But it's still Survivor, and it's always going to be, which is what makes it great.
Yeah, I want to read a few of the comments here. So Chris is saying, so excited for Omar and Mike, 2 recent favorites. I agree. I like them both. Super cool dudes outside of this, just, you know, having a casual chat here and there with them. They're always fan friendly. Chris also saying, I'm kind of over the Sweat and Savvy challenges. Give them supplies or let them gather supplies at the beginning. We'll talk about that Sweat and Savvy in a second. Christian Gal said they did, unfortunately. I'm not too sure what that was, removing the season. And Dolores can't believe it because 43 was all right in her mind. And Christian Gal saying, go Canada. Okay, so let's get into the big talking point for this opening sequence. They all get onto the beach. They're super excited. Adrenaline is pumping. The editors did such a good job at encapsulating the feeling these players had when they were on the mat talking to Jeff, right? And Jeff goes into his normal, you know, for 20 blah blah years, 22 years, this is a social experiment. He does it every season. I don't mind it. I think it's really cool that they show those clips of past seasons. They create this legacy for people to follow. If you're a new fan, you're like, wow, this thing has been going on for years. I might want to go back and watch it. But it creates this like really cool entry to the season for us. But it all comes crashing down, Kahuna, when Bruce, an early favorite, someone that I think Jake chose at the end, he ends up injuring his head, smashing it as he's trying to leopard crawl underneath one of the obstacles. What did you think of the way Bruce went down and how this was handled on the show?
It was brutal. It looked like that would have just, I mean, so many people would have been out then and there, just cold cock, blood dripping down his face. But I don't like the way the show handled it. They were just kind of like, yeah, like, walk it off, man. Like, in Australia, we have this thing when you play like kids football. We call it the magic spray. Like, you see a kid get hurt and they're injured, but you come up and spray a bit of water on them. They're like, oh, okay, I'm up now and running and it's all good. And I felt like they were doing that to like a grown adult who smashed his head and is literally bleeding
Kahuna, did you or Jake, did any of you two ever play any contact sports? Because to me, that is where my head went. I played contact sports throughout school. I did karate at a pretty high level. And concussions is a real thing. I immediately thought concussion, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things for me that was so crazy was that Jeff asked Bruce if they should stop. I'm like, Bruce is not the guy that should be making that call. He's just coming into the show. He's a newbie. He's trying to impress his tribe. He doesn't know that he's in trouble. Like, doctors, in my opinion, should have immediately stopped the challenge and say, let's check him out. Right, Jake?
Absolutely. You do not take head injuries lightly at all. If I remember, I played baseball in high school, and we wear helmets when we go up to bat. And even if you got hit in the head by a pitch, you got a pretty thick helmet on. A lot of times, you don't even feel it really. It may hurt a little bit, it may sting, but they do not let you continue if you get hit. They say, no, 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 you're out. You're out for the rest of the game. That they don't take
Because you see
any
it.
chances.
You
They don't
see
take
it in
any
sport.
chances.
You see it in sports all the time. Like, I'm a big rugby union fan. It's almost like American football. A player gets a concussion and the medic comes on telling him he's got to leave. And the player's like, no, I'm staying, because they want to keep going. But that's why the doctor overrules the player in this situation. And I feel like Jeff should learn from this in the future. Listen, he's going to get some stuff wrong sometimes. It's not ideal. As long as he learns from this situation, I'm okay with it. He talked about how much of preparation they had in the background with the medical team on his podcast, and how, as soon as the medics step in, they've got a boat ready, they've got a chopper ready, like they've got so many contingency plans. I just feel like he should have stepped in a little bit sooner, and he should not have left it open to the player in the heat of the moment with adrenaline pumping to make that decision. And apparently Bruce on the podcast with Jeff said he remembered nothing from the point of him hitting his head to the point of him waking up with Jeff holding his head. That is what he only remembers, Jeff holding his head. That's what he remembers. He remembers the start of the challenge and that. So it shows you how severe that was when it happened. But really good news here.
They might as well have asked the cartoon birds going around his head if he was okay to continue. Like, they would have given a better opinion. Like, it's 100%. Ridiculous. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm okay, with his eyes rolling back.
Like, Ryan says here, Ryan's agreeing with us here. He says no competitor wants to quit, so there's no real point in asking them. Dorara said Bruce confirmed that he did have a concussion, and he said it took him about 3 days just to feel normal. Willie says the competitor doesn't make the decision, the host does. 100%, or medical. Medical should even overrule Jeff in that point. But Jeff says at the point where he shouts medical, that is when medical overrules him, not prior to that. I feel like medical should be actually overruling him prior to that if something happens, because Jeff's not a medical professional when injuries happen on the show. And I know I'm being very critical. Some people said the challenges should be made easier. We had too many different things there. I don't necessarily think the challenges should be made easier. I think that as soon as you do obstacle course-like type of immunity challenges, these things will happen. Like, there's just no way for you to prevent injuries from happening, but you just need to have the right protocols in place for when they do happen, so that you put the player's safety as the number one priority in my mind, in any case. But another interesting thing here, I wanted to talk about this a little bit as we move on from Bruce. And actually, I forgot about this. I was going to say this prior. Bruce will come back, because Jeff has said Bruce is the first player since season 41 that has an open invitation to playing the game again if he wants to. So no one else has got that open invitation. So Jeff has said it. He's coming back. We just don't know what season yet. For his sake, I'm hoping that he gets another season to play against newbies. I think it's the most fair thing, because he was in the game for 12 hours before they pulled him here.
He was basically in the game for what, 20 minutes when he by the time when he hit his head, his regular self went away, because he was out of it. He was in pain. He wasn't the same person. He was in the game for like 20 minutes. Yeah.
Dover is saying that Survivor Australia rule of temporary medevac to properly evaluate the injury seems like a good idea for concussion cases. I agree. I think that, Australian Survivor allowing for someone to get pulled, to go to hospital, to get checked out, and as long as they're back within 24 hours to play the game, I think is a good rule and should be applied to Survivor US as well. I think there's very little advantage that can be gained by being out of the game for 24 hours, especially so early as well. But the problem with Bruce was that it took him 3 days, so he probably wouldn't have been able to come back, even if he was on Australian Survivor.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the puzzle part of this first challenge. Obviously, we see Purple doing really well, getting through the puzzle, getting stuck with the ring toss to the top, and then Green just copies them and ends up taking the W here, Jake. What did you think of this?
They need to... I know that they do it sometimes where when you do a puzzle and then they have like a flap that you can cover it so the other people can't see it. I think they should do that sometimes, because it's just boring. Like, okay, once one tribe finishes it, basically, the other ones immediately can do it. And if you make the grave mistake, apparently, of choosing Carolyn to go first for a ring toss, then yeah, it all just depends on the ring toss at the end. The puzzle kind of becomes useless.
Yeah, it's an interesting twist because normally the puzzle is at the end and the physical stuff is first. So they kind of switched that up a little bit. But Kahuna, I really like, we had some comments earlier here saying that the Sweat and Savvy is getting old. I agree. I'm kind of over Sweat and Savvy quite a bit. But they did try and bring an interesting variation to the show here because the tribe that got second place actually got to choose. They had an option to either choose Sweat and Savvy, and that meant that the other tribe had to do the remaining options. So it actually made it beneficial for a tribe to get second place. What did you think about Sweat and Savvy? And if you were the tribe that got second, what would you have chosen in this scenario?
I think you have to choose Savvy every time. Like, I know the fact that it's a mystery is scary, and especially when they gave 15 minutes. I believe that the last couple seasons it's unlimited time, and then that 15 minutes probably would have been pretty daunting and intimidating. But the sweat after, when you know that you've got physical challenges, they've done a challenge. You saw what it did to these two poor blokes. It destroyed them like for 4 hours, and we saw it play out as well. Like, I don't know if it played a part in Matthew's adventuring that he wasn't able to climb as well as he might have done before a 4-hour physical challenge that wrecked him, and then Brandon copying the flack as well when that came to the next challenge too. And the risk to reward ratio, I think, they're going to give you the flint and food eventually, right? Like, you're going to get it. They're not going to let you die out there. So you might as well just try the puzzle and take that shot knowing that you're going to get it anyway, rather than just destroying two of your strongest competitors to do the sweat challenge. So
it's very true. And also, if you're the individual that has to go there and do this thing, you're taken away from your tribe for 4 hours, right? And a very interesting behind the scenes on Jeff's podcast was that they obviously have a dream team that run all the challenges before they actually have people run it. They exactly the same number of contestants that are in the show will be in the dream team to be able to do these different challenges. So they had 2 people doing this coconut challenge back and forth before they did it, and they timed it to make sure that it was as difficult and as tight as possible for them to be able to complete it in, because you had a former NFL athlete out there struggling to do this thing. I think that it was a pretty brutal challenge to do, even though for me personally, I would hate to have the pressure on me of doing Savvy. And I think, Jake, that is what Carson was sort of really worried about when they were choosing him or volunteering him to do that as well.
I think that, so if I were out there, I'd selfishly really push for Savvy if they wanted me to be the person doing it. Because what did they say? You only had 15 minutes or something?
15 minutes, one guest. Like previously, I think they had 2 guests.
Yeah. So worst case scenario, you're away from your tribe for 15 minutes. That's not going to make a huge difference. But worst case scenario for the other one, and we saw it with Brandon and Matthew, they got it at the last second. 4 hours was starting to get dark. They lost a ton of bonding time with their tribe mates, and it was way harder. I mean, I'm sorry, I would have aced that puzzle too, like counting it, because you just locate the part where they all intersect and just count.
We're
not all engineers, Jake. We're not all engineers, okay? I would have probably.
I have faith. I have faith in both of you guys that you would have been able to figure that out too.
I need everybody to believe I don't have brains. If I ever go out there and play the game, I'm only brawn. That's what they need to think, Jake. Don't blow up my spot.
Yeah. But I do get though why they were worried, because 15 minutes, that sounds scary. Like that does not give you pretty much any room for error. So I get it, but also you got to realize it's got to be somewhat easy if they're only giving it that amount of time. But
yeah.
Hindsight.
Now they have this big twist coming into this season, Kahuna. They've put a birdcage in the middle of the camp for contestants to find. We heard about this birdcage prior to the season even being a thing, because it got leaked on Inside Survivor that twist was going to be in the game. I think a lot of us fans that follow every little bit of information, that's not elimination spoilery. All had our own opinions about this thing coming into it. What did you think of the birdcage? Are you high or low on this dynamic that they've put into the game and how the contestants dealt with it?
Super high. I do like it because, like, the reality is it's an idol, right? They didn't know that, so there's that thing which adds this level of what is it, mystery. It really stuffed Brandon up by not knowing that it is an idol. But the thing is, in every season of Survivor, we know that they go look for idols. Everyone on the beach knows that someone is out there going looking for idols. And it's like we talk about public idols. The idols, it's just common knowledge that they're there. People are going to look for them. So why not try to get more out of that? Like, they're going to do it anyway. So they're like, oh, they're sneaking off to go find it. But no, let's put it right out in front. And it adds this new element, which I found fascinating. I don't know. So like a lot of the stuff that Survivor does, it might not turn out that well. Like, it might not play out in reality that well. But the idea, I think, is great, especially by putting the other fake one in there as well.
Yeah.
Like, it could have really been something.
I challenge anyone that really hates Jeff. And I know it's 50-50 at the moment out there. There's some people who... they're fanatic about Jeff being the host and the producer of the show. And then there are people who don't like him. And they say the more successful you get in life, the more detractors you're going to have. That just comes with the territory, right? But if you don't like Jeff and you don't like some of the ideas that he throws onto this game, again, his podcast was really good insights in regards to why he brought the birdcage and why they try different twists. They try to innovate. They try to keep the show fresh. But the key thing here is that Jeff even admits himself that sometimes these twists work and sometimes these twists blow up in their faces. I think for me personally, in this case, it did work. I really enjoyed seeing how the different tribes took to the birdcage. The fact that, it brought such great TV moments with Yam Yam saying, they can't just abracadabra and the lock will open. They need to go get a key somewhere. It was really interesting. And only one tribe actually went out there to go look for the key. And I believe it was Kane who said, let's work in groups so that no person could find it on their own. So we immediately see Kane as a bit of a strategist. He's someone that's thinking ahead in the game. And then we have this brilliant moment with Brandon finding the key, Jake, and first trying to keep it a secret from Maddie.
Yeah, this whole episode is actually a lot more interesting if you guys listen to Maddie's interview with just her interviews with all of the Survivor bloggers and podcasters, because there's a lot that went on that we didn't see, like that she and Kane were actually the ones that devised the whole split up into groups, that she saw Brandon get the key. She knew the entire time. And yeah, just the whole debacle is very interesting. And I totally see why she wanted to gun for him after this, because I mean,
it was mutual. The feeling was mutual. I think that, again, what we need to remember, and I see people online bashing that the edit was a bit weird. We couldn't fully understand the dynamics of it. And I understand. I like to see how a vote comes together. I like to put myself in the shoes of the players that are out there and then think to myself, what would I have done in that scenario? But I do think that there was a lot going on within the space of the hour or whatever runtime there was, that it was difficult to tell every little story. But the one thing I did get was that Brandon didn't trust Maddie, and Maddie didn't trust Brandon. That was very evident. So when she came up to him to try and offer and say, hey, let's keep this key a secret, and then, we can decide what to do with it. That's her trying to reach out with an olive branch saying, let's do something together. And I think he made the right choice, Kahuna, because if I was in his case, I would not have trusted Maddie, because he's the most physical alpha guy out there already. If he's got an advantage as well, his target's just gone through the roof as someone that they need to vote out. Plus, Maddie's got potential dirt on him that she can, tell anyone. And in Survivor, how often does a secret stay a secret, Kahuna?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way she did the approach also left some wanting, I think, as well, because she was like, oh, I think I've seen him, and I'm going to drop that little hint where, like, yeah, maybe we should tell the entire tribe. And then immediately when he admits it, she goes, let's just keep it between us. And just back, like, it was such a fast backflip as far as the edit goes. But she's like putting it to him, tell the entire tribe. He's like, okay, well, I'm kind of busted here. I think she's got me. I love that whole thing of, like, he thinks she thinks that I think that he thinks that I've got it, that she, and it's got that whole thing going on. And then, like she immediately backflips on it and says, let's keep it between us. So that's going to put him off straight away. And like you said, the added complexity there of being a potential target and now having an advantage or a disadvantage, who knows at that point. He's just a bit cautious of someone so willing to quickly change and be sneaky and deception. I can't even think of the word. Sneaky.
Deceptive.
We'll just stick with that one.
Yeah.
I'm very eloquent and articulate, I swear.
I want to read a few of the comments here. So Dolores says, yeah, Maddie said once he said no, she changed the focus to him. And then there's also a bit of talk here about Maddie calling herself the Godfather. Tara says that I like Maddie, but calling yourself the Godfather after 3 days is a bit much. I agree. I think she wanted to be a big player. And that's why I always take these exit interviews with a grain of salt, because in their mind, they were running the whole thing and they had all these puppets that they could pull strings with, because that's their perspective, but clearly it didn't work out that way for them. Marcus here says, I like that the players had to find the key like an old school idol hunt when you get the clue. And I agree. I don't like things just being given to players. Like, I like for them to go and work for it and get it. And there is the cool element of, if, like Jeff said, they didn't know how people were going to react to this twist being out there. Would they try and do the impossible and find the key on their own, open the birdcage on their own while somebody could potentially see them, and then swap the fake idol in there to fool someone? Or would they create a bond with one other person to say, you go distract them, take people to the beach, I'm going to go look for the key, or I've got it, and I'll go open it up? What would people do? What choice would they make? The more choices players have in the game, the better. And this is one of those twists that brings great choices into the game. While we're on the Orange Tribe, let's talk a little bit about the dynamics here, because we also have, who I think at this point is my favorite player in the game, Matthew. And he seems to just be the life of the party. Jake, you picked him as your number one guy pick coming into the season. How do you feel about Jake this episode? Obviously, he gets in a bit of trouble because he's such a free spirit and he's seeking adventure.
I think I made the absolute right choice with my first pick. Of course, you got to stand by your actions. But no, I thought he was great. I don't, not like getting huge like master manipulator strategist vibes, but like he's a really interesting character, and I just think he's going to be a lot of fun this season. And
Jake loves Jeff loves him. In his podcast, he's like, when we cast, Matthew is the type of person we want on the show, is what he said, and he said they love the fact that he went up to go climb that cliff or that rock on the beach. They had the drones going immediately. They don't stop players from doing whatever they want to go do out there. But it's that sense of adventure that he has, saying that he doesn't want to have a midlife crisis. He wants to have a midlife adventure out there. That is what gets Jeff really passionate about the shows, getting castaways like that. And I think that's why he is extremely high on this season. He said this is going to be the best New Era season as well. He's really high on it. Now, I feel like sometimes he says that every season, but his enthusiasm seems to be really high on the podcast, and Matthew is somebody that he really, really likes. Outside of that, Kahuna, let's talk a little bit about the Green Tribe, because we potentially have a bit of a showmance starting to develop there in both Franny and Matt. Did you see this coming? Do you think that, birds of a feather flock together?
They're cute as hell. They're just adorable. I love it. Like, see, I don't know if it's a good strategy. I don't know if it's a good idea. That you're probably sealing your fate a little bit. I mean, that trope of, you got to get out the power couple because they're an automatic alliance. It's never going to turn on each other. They're going to go deep together, all that sort of thing. And that wasn't a euphemism, by the way. That meant in the game. So Jake got that. But yeah, I thought they were cute. They were just really good TV. And Matt, I love him as well. He's just positive and friendly, and he has that his preseason stuff of being like the self-deprecating, down on himself, like ho-hum kind of dude. It's kind of working for him because he's got some riz with Franny here going on. So I like it. I like seeing it, but I don't know how well it's going to work out for them.
Yeah, especially, Jake, when we're looking at the tribe setup at the moment, there's 6 people in a tribe. How dangerous is it to have 2 out of the 6 in a showmance together?
Listen, You guys remember two people? Well, you may remember them. I don't know. Rob and Amber, I think her name was.
Yep,
You guys
I've heard
remember
of them.
Yeah,
I've
I've heard of them before.
Yeah. I think you guys
I
have.
think they're the
Um,
Amazing Race couple that did Amazing Race together.
yes. For some reason, I thought they played Survivor instead. No, they were on a tribe of six, three tribes that season, and that goes to show that it's these smaller tribes can create these really strong bonds because there's so little people, and obviously pretty anecdotal, but worked out pretty damn well. Also, hopefully this isn't like spoilery because I think it's kind of obvious, but Jeff kind of said like, yeah, there's a showmance this season. So I think it is. Although it's interesting because I thought I read that Franny was gay, but
I
maybe
didn't see that. I
maybe
think
maybe
Claire,
she's
I think
bi.
Claire-
I don't
Claire,
know.
Claire is queer.
Yeah.
She's
Okay,
I didn't see that
maybe
about
I'm
Franny.
wrong.
Yeah.
Have there
maybe-
been there's not that many successful showmancers, is there? Rob and Amber.
There's been like two or three.
Well, we
Yeah,
had
who
Mark
was-
and Sam.
Mark and Sam, an Australian Survivor.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But
And
they
then there
were kind
were-
of
yeah.
they were not successful in their first season playing. They were successful as a married couple coming back.
No, but they met and stayed together and became.
Oh right, you
yeah,
mean
yeah.
not successful in the game? You mean
No,
successful?
that
in
never.
life.
That's never really that.
Look at me, the
successful.
game
Yeah.
bot, immediately
Yeah.
thinking about the game, opposed to them actually getting kids together and having a loving relationship
yeah.
outside of Survivor.
Because you always wonder, right? The pressure of that bubble, the environment of Survivor, it probably intensifies all those emotions that you might have, and any feelings of friendship are elevated, and more. And once you get out of that environment where you're with them for 24/7, will it last? So it's always interesting, that sort of thing, and to see that it can work with someone like Rob and Amber, and maybe Matt and Franny could be the next Rob and Amber. We'll see.
Yeah, Tyson and Rachel is another good example. Christian Gal says Franny is queer. I didn't know that. Maybe there is something there. I don't know. Maybe there's a different showmance we don't know about. Maybe Matt gets his heart broken. and
Maybe
next
this is
episode
this is
mystery.
a red herring. They
Yeah,
knew.
and then suddenly Carson and Sarah, because I've seen some rumors out on the internet about those two. I think people are trying to ship them. I don't think it's actually going to be a thing. But let's talk a little bit about the Purple Tribe, which is the tribe I personally gravitate towards the most. I really enjoy the characters on there. I immediately thought Carson was like Peter Parker. They mentioned that he was Peter Parker in there. Kahuna, the dedication on this kid, because he was a scrawny kid before he went out there. Now he's all muscly and ripped, and he's got this new body that he doesn't know what to do with it out there. He might be more potent than what he think with the ladies.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like I said in our draft, I was like, I like the secret buff dude, the one that you can't really tell, and it's as soon as he takes his shirt off, you're like, oh, okay, so he might actually do really well. And the fact that he said he did it to prep, he was such a skinny guy, and he's clearly taking the game incredibly seriously. And I'm loving my first episode. He had a great episode. He said he's done all the puzzles, he's doing everything, trying to pre-game this as best as he can, and he set himself up well. I think by setting himself up physically, doing all the puzzles and challenges, he seems to be maintaining his threat level as well. With the savvy, he was trying to play down that he's a freaking rocket scientist. So, no one knows that yet. He just looks like
No,
Harry
he said he
Potter.
wasn't going to tell anyone that
Yeah.
he's a rocket scientist either. So I think he's saying that he's studying or something, but I don't know if he's going to be telling them that specifically. Christian here says Carson is Tom Holland. Also says Yam Yam is special. 100%. Yam Yam was special from the moment I picked him as the number one draft pick in the season. And the fact that he is worried about dinosaurs out there absolutely sent me when he was on the island. That was amazing. But you can tell that the producers and the camera loves Yam Yam as well, because he got a lot of confessionals in that first episode. I also wanted to bring up, Jake Carson also seems to be in what is probably the most solid alliance at this stage from a storytelling perspective. He does end up forming a bond with Helen. Obviously, they do the puzzle, the savvy part together, and also Sarah is within that alliance. And I feel like those three are going to stick pretty tight, and they seem to have a lot in common in the game.
I agree. Yeah, you're totally right about that's really the only structured hey, this is an alliance right here. viewers, look at this alliance. Usually there's like a couple, maybe one per tribe, but yeah, that one was really like the only solid, like explicit alliance, which is a good sign for them, obviously. And yeah, I got to say, I think I was pretty low on Carson coming into this because of the whole merch thing, but I think he's proven me wrong that like he really is like a huge fan.
He's playing 4D chess. He was playing 4D chess, getting people off his scent, like because he's got the merch store, people thought he's not going to win.
He planned that before he even got cast for the show.
Yeah. He's still playing Survivor, even after leaving the island. He's still playing Survivor on us.
Although I will say that I thought it was interesting, not necessarily a bad thing, but that he like straight up told them like, yeah, I like got super buff and gained 20 pounds or whatever before coming out here. Like that they probably already assumed like, oh, this kid's a super fan and he's going to play really hard. But I think that just kind of would have confirmed that if they already believed it.
These days, the super
doesn't
fan
really matter.
Thing, like, because
they're
everybody is
fans,
super
right?
fans. They're like all fans. Yeah. Bruce said he watched the show since the season 1. So I feel like there's literally no one that don't watch the show or come onto it that don't know what they're getting themselves into these days.
It's not Australia.
Yeah, they're not recruit. Yeah, that's like, I know fans continue to compare the two franchises instead of just being grateful that we have 3 English versions of the show and so much content to watch. We always have to say Australia is better, US is better, or South Africa is better. But at the end of the day, every single franchise has got its flaws. And in my opinion, the flaw of Australian Survivor is that they recruit people because they're Instagram models or they're sports stars and they don't really know the show. So no franchise is perfect. Just putting it out there.
Is that how
like fingers?
Is that how David got cast? Because he's a model.
He's a model, yeah.
Calvin Klein model, I think he was back in the day.
Well, that worked out pretty well.
But he just so happened to also have a real knack for the game. And that's why sometimes you don't know, because you can cast someone that isn't necessarily a super fan or a big fan of the show, and then they get out there and
Chris
they just
Noble.
have that. Yeah, like South Africa had Rob Bentelli, who became one of the best to ever play the game, was not really a fan of the show at all.
He's crazy.
He's seen, I think, 2 seasons ever, and that's when he got casted. It was All Stars and Heroes as Villains. I think it was the only 2 seasons he ever watched.
Prior to playing the game. Way more though. There's people who say they're fans get out there, and you're like, "What are you doing?" Like, have you ever seen an episode of this? Yeah, like they say they're fans and then just play it like crap. So, I think it comes down to the person's ability to trouble solve. Problem solve, being able to socialize, being able to read. Like it comes down to so much stuff that is innate and can certainly be developed and honed and improved in experience. But I think it's kind of a thing that you either have or you don't, what we've seen over 20-something years. Yeah.
It's got something to do with your personality and adaptability when you're out on the show, because you could be like a Carson, and that's why I don't fault Jake for being low on the super nerdy fan coming in there, because they have all these plans. They've got all the spreadsheets, the notebooks and stuff, and they come up with all these premeditated plans, and they get out there and things don't go their way and they don't know how to adapt, because in their mind, everybody's chess pieces that they can move around. And Survivor is not like that. And Carson does look like he could maybe be good at adapting. I'm hoping he's got that secret sauce, because I did enjoy him. I do like the 3 of them together in that alliance. Outside of that, let's talk about Carolyn. Like, we can't go through this episode without talking about Carolyn in this tribe. Now, Kahuna, you seem really worried about Carolyn. Tell us why. Do you think Carolyn's got longevity?
I think she very well could, depending on how she builds those relationships. But we've seen so far that her ability to do that is going to be strained, or at least harder than some of the other people. Like Helen was doing that face when she's like, I'm weird. She's like, no, you're. She's like, I am. Yeah. Okay. Like it was just so like, no. I love that, but I mean, she does seem to have a little bit of. She realized she's like, no one's talking to me, but I don't want to be that annoying person that goes up to everyone else and hovers and all that. So there's a little bit of self-awareness there, which is really good to see. The way she performed on the challenge is not a good sign. She's just throwing it straight up in the air, which is, probably hard as well. But she was like, wee, and like it was so crazy. Like, and I feel like in a tribe of 6, that can be a lot. Like when you're with it 24/7.
Now it's tribe of 5.
Yeah. Or tribe of 5, even worse. Yeah. So I do worry about how grating she would be on an individual personal level. But as far as TV goes, as far as camera goes, as far as confessional goes, she's brilliant and she's a great character. But how that plays out in like
Well, I actually
personal
kind
relationships, I
of,
don't know.
I kind of like, it's weird because I love big characters. I like the entertaining people out there for sure, but I find her a little bit difficult to follow, Jake. Like, I don't even think she can put one coherent sentence together out there, and I don't know how people are finding that entertaining, Jake.
At least without like
Yeah, I think hopefully she will become more like her inspiration. I don't know if you guys know, her inspiration for applying to the show was Marianne. And we kind of know Marianne was a little, not quite to the level of Carolyn. She was a little crazy at first.
She's making Marianne look normal at this stage.
Yeah, exactly. But we all know, well, Kahuna, you don't know, but you haven't seen the season.
as soon as you say she's making someone look normal, I'm like, okay.
She went on to really calm down and contain herself and
I think
succeed.
being deprived of food will do that to you. I think it'll take the energy out of you down the road. Like, she might come down a little bit. Gabe says Carolyn will give us good TV at least. Dolores says Carolyn is just making her own path. That she is. Another inspiration of Carolyn is Nora. And again, Nora looks very normal compared to Carolyn out there. Kay is saying maybe Carson will end up with Yam Yam and Carolyn rather than the other two girls. Unlikely, though. I think Carson has got more in common with the two girls. I can see Yam Yam forming a part of a solid 4 in there. I think Yam Yam is going to fit into a lot of different things. You could be worried for him not being in that conversation, but I'm not. I think Yam Yam will find his way. I'm more worried if that tribe goes to tribal council. I think we would not be surprised to see Carolyn go next. She's definitely on the outs.
It does seem like that Yam Yam and Carolyn are kind of close. Like, I think Yam Yam said, like, after the challenge, like, I love you, girl, but come on. Or something. He said something like that. And so I think they're kind of close. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, it kind of becomes like a 3-2 situation with Carson, Sarah, and Helen versus Yam Yam and Carolyn. They vote out Carolyn, but then they don't lose again. And then Yam Yam kind of comes back in with the 3, and then they become a strong 4. I'm thinking way too far ahead, but
yeah, it's hard. It's like one episode in, but you can't help speculating.
They don't seem to have a lot of, like, as far as the men goes anyway, strength wise, they're easily the weakest tribe. The women look athletic. Like, even Carolyn, like, looks like she could be athletic. She didn't show that necessarily, but who knows? So I am worried that they could go on a bit of a losing streak as well, unless, like, the orange team
the good thing about Survivor in the US is that they love their puzzles, and they bring puzzles into almost every challenge. It's not like Australian Survivor where it's brute force, physicality, doing monkey bars, climbing over big walls and stuff all the time. So I do think that they are by far the smartest tribe out there, and that if it's puzzles that is involved in the challenges like we saw in this first episode, they probably will do better more often than not. And they might be the tribe that gets to the puzzle last, but then finishes it first every single time.
So Carolyn could be protected here.
Maybe, yeah. I would not be surprised if they don't lose as well. I'm a little bit worried for Orange, but Chris says here, she made me laugh when she said Peter Pan, so I hope she stays around for a while. Before Danny Cap says Carolyn and Tori, the challenge peed their pants.
Yep. Carolyn might be a champ then. We'll see.
Yeah, Carolyn might be on the next challenge. Who knows? You need a little bit of that Carolyn energy in there to mix it up. All right, so let's talk about the trip to No Name Island on this specific episode. It's become now a thing that every single season, again, we're going to do. I'm a little bit over that as well to a certain degree. But, Jake, I was really low on the fact that they really took the choice away from the players here. They had to choose out of the 3 bags, and 2 of them were going to be a no vote. They could choose if they wanted to pick again after getting a no vote on the first one, risking another no vote, or getting an advantage in the game. I enjoyed the previous format more because they had the opportunity to form alliances, talk to people. I think it's why they didn't show what was discussed on the way to the decision, because it really didn't matter. Everybody had to choose. What did you think of this variation to No Name Island?
I'm a little split on it. I agree that, yeah, you kind of took away the choice. So, like, what's kind of the point? But I liked. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this, but I liked the new advantages. I thought they were really interesting. Maybe
Talk about it.
potentially. Okay, yeah. The what is it? Bank your vote is. I believe they've already used that.
Yeah, Lauren used it in the first episode. So if she didn't
Yeah.
vote, she could take the parchment, which I thought was really cool because you're not just getting an extra vote. You have to earn that extra vote by taking a risk. So I do like the advantages. I just didn't like the fact that they were forced to pick and that they couldn't choose to sit out or not. I like the option that you give the players more than forcing them to take it. But yeah, the bank the vote is interesting. And the other one was the inheritance advantage, Jake.
Yeah, that one is crazy. Because it may not happen where like a bunch of advantages are played, but like, can you imagine if like 4 people play something and then she's like, I'm gonna have the power of all of those now. Extra.
I think they didn't make it clear. I think that she has to choose when she plays it before the votes are cast and before the advantages are played. If she can sit back and play it after it's been played, that's way too overpowered. My understanding, and I'm sure we will get clarification on this in the coming weeks, is that she has to choose when she plays it, which still makes it something that requires skill, and it still makes it something where you need to understand the social dynamics and you need to understand where the votes are going to go and who's got what advantage in the game. I personally like the inheritance advantage a lot more than the knowledge is power advantage. I think it is an improvement for me, Kahuna, on that. You probably don't know what the knowledge is power advantage is.
No, I've heard of it, but I can't, because it was in 41, wasn't it?
It was in 41, I believe.
I remember it playing out.
So knowledge is power was an advantage where if you knew someone else had an advantage in the game, you could sit at tribal council and ask for it. But I think this is a better, for me, it's a better advantage compared to knowledge is power, if we had to choose between the two of them. Let's see what the chat has to say about this. Chris says the advantages are overpowered. K Frick says risk vote. Dolores says, I wonder if they were allowed to talk about it on the way back. Maybe. I wonder if they were, you all go your separate ways, because it seemed like not all of them knew what the other players were going to do when they got back to camp, which caused a bit of drama as well. Christian says the inheritance advantage is overpowered. Chris says, I will be curious to see how on earth the inheritance advantage works. Shot in the dark is useless. I don't like shot in the dark personally either, to be honest. So there's a few different. So yeah, Chris saying glad they gave up knowledge is power, one of the worst advantages in Survivor history, in my opinion. Well, be careful. It's only one episode in. They haven't officially told us that they've taken knowledge is power out. You could end up with an inheritance advantage and knowledge is power in the game. That would be just crazy because they just keep throwing all these new advantages in the game and they just keep giving people advantages. But Matt clearly gets the worst, deal out of this because he gets 2 no votes for the first 2 tribal councils that he goes to. So I am worried for Matt, especially if he's wanting to get in a showmance with Franny, and if there is a potential of people seeing that as a threat, they could target him or one of his alliance members because he has no vote in the game for 2 tribal councils. Really, really big disadvantage for me when it comes to him. But Lauren goes back, doesn't tell the full truth. She kind of wants to hide the fact that she's got this advantage. And then, Kahuna, we finally see something in Survivor US that we very rarely see. The last time I remember 2 people talking at a challenge was after the challenge in Heroes versus Villains when Russell Hans and Colby Donaldson had a conversation about the idol being switched over. There may have been something after that. That's the one that sticks out. But in Australian Survivor, we get the sharing of information quite a lot. And I've always wondered if the producers in the US are against it. I really enjoyed seeing Claire reach out and talk to Matthew at the Immunity Challenge. What was your thoughts on that?
I loved it because I am so used to seeing it in Australia, and I always wonder why they don't. Like, why would you not want more information, right? Like, the more information, the better you are. And I love the way she's like, excuse me. It was so funny. And then at the end, they're like, I like you. Yeah, it was just so simple and done. But very clever of Claire to, not only was she helping Matthew, like in the end, by giving him that information, but she was trying to figure out where Matt lied as well, kind of thing, and see what, maybe Matthew might have said, no, we had 2 different clamshells, or, so who knows? Like, it's great. It actually potentially built something for if they get to merge, they've got that already thing, like pre-relationship there. There's a mutual assistance going on while still trying to get more information for themselves. So great move. And I don't know why people don't do it constantly at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I think that there was a hidden scene this week that showed Claire, Franny, and Maddie working together in an alliance as well. So there is some sort of an alliance that are forming there in the hidden scene. So Claire is someone that I've got my eye on as a potentially really big player in the game. I am wondering why it didn't make the main show. I don't know if she was necessarily trying to out Matt in this situation, because it looks like they may work together, but 100% she was building a bridge with Matthew and the other tribe, saying, I'll share a bit of information that's accurate with you so that we can work together in the future of the game. So I like it whenever players take that type of initiative in the game. Another thing that I wanted to bring up here in the immunity challenge is that we nearly have our third evacuation in the first episode, with Danny getting dehydrated and having to sit out of the challenge, which ultimately cost Orange big time, losing that muscle because that puzzle pieces looked heavy and difficult to move, Jake.
Yeah, I think it was Brandon.
Oh, sorry, Brandon.
Yeah. And then I thought it was interesting that they
Did I say Danny?
Yeah.
Danny.
Oh, he reminds me of Danny. That's right. But yeah, Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was watching with my dad and my girlfriend, and I remember after Brandon was taken out and then he didn't come back, I was like, they lost. Because those things were so heavy. I could just tell, like, even with Brandon, they were struggling to, all of them had to, use all of their strength to even move it. So I was like,
hats off to the purple team for even getting through it without Bruce in their tribe, because they were severely underpowered, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is crazy.
So fun fact on this one. On the Survivor podcast that Jeff did, he said that they created that specific puzzle and challenge. They started working on it 3 to 4 months before the show was filmed. And he said that's why for him it's so hilarious when people say that the show is rigged to, have certain challenges at certain times and things like that, or to help certain players in the game, because these things are literally, when the season ends, they start working on the challenges and the twists and the dynamics that are going to get put in the game.
They don't even know who's on
immediately,
the show.
And they don't even know who's on the show yet. But people are like, oh, Ben Driebergen is to blame for fire making. We hate Ben Driebergen because he brought fire making into the game. Yeah. And I know fire making is a lot easier to put in last minute, but I just think these things get thought through. They know exactly what they're going to do at what stage in the game. It gets planned to the last second. Like, that's one of the things you can't take away from Survivors, that they plan these things in advance.
Definitely.
So Gabe says Orange Tribe is horrible at puzzles. We learned. Claire revealed Lauren lie. I agree. Chris doesn't want me to bring the negativity in about the power, the knowledge is power advantage. B4 Danny Cab says, I want to see a reward challenge like the sandwich bar in Survivor AU, or the sweet one that they had a few years back, going back one by one. For those who've seen AU, they'll know, that's a good advantage. So it's the one where they get a reward and they all can only go into the reward one at a time, and then there is normally an advantage or something hidden there. But I think because of the advantage now being on the no-name island every season, it's something that probably won't be brought in unless they change the format of the show as a whole, which I'm not opposed to them changing it. Kay says, Danny is impressive me with the social and strategic skills. He had a grueling 4-hour challenge the day before. Brandon, but I'm also getting. You're going to confuse me.
You're not the only one.
I'm going to call him Danny again because of that.
Do you think that ruined him I think Sweat ruined him for that challenge. And
massively.
Also, during the challenge, did you see Maddie was actually standing on his shoulders in order to get a better view of the slide puzzle? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're literally standing on him while he just did that 4-hour grueling thing, and now he's your only horse to move these blocks, and you're standing on, no wonder he freaking passed out, man. It's 100%. Crazy.
Yeah. 4PF says, finally a successful idle play. We're going to talk about that next. And then 4PF says that tribe will probably get another idle hidden in it. Yep, they normally do. Well, you'd hope. I guess the first one was in the birdcage. I don't know how they do the second one. If they
they're going to put it. I just think they're going to put it back in. Put another
in the birdcage. And just go hide the key somewhere else.
Find another key.
Just hide the key again. Yeah. Maybe I'm underestimating.
But the whole secret about the birdcage is out now. I mean, it's kind of like I don't know.
Maybe now they'll hide beware advantage, and now it's a bad thing.
Switch things out. Yeah. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Luckland's Land says the producers were probably annoyed the birdcage wasn't kept a secret. I agree. I think that's not something they sort of accounted for. But obviously, we see Orange losing here. They're going to go to Tribal Council. And up until this point, we thought we knew the dynamics within the tribe somewhat. You know, Maddie and Brandon seemed to be getting along pretty well. They formed this bond, this brotherhood, doing the coconut sweat challenge in the beginning. And it looked like Kane was going to work with them as well. But this is where, for a lot of people, it became very unclear as to how the vote came together, because Jamie is super nervous that votes are coming her way. Apparently, there's been some behind the scenes content or interviews that have come out where people have said that Jamie's name was floating about. So that's why she got nervous. And it ends up being an interesting tribal council because everybody looks out for themselves in this episode. And Kane wants to make a big move with Maddie. And because of all of these different things going on, Jake, we've waited 4 seasons for someone to play the what's the twist?
Shot in the dark.
Shot in the dark. And this is how it get played. This is how it's used in the game. Were you high on this? Were you a little bit let down about how it went down? For me, it was like a little bit of, I don't know if I was excited because I don't feel like Jamie needed it.
I was very let down. I mean, yeah, according to these interviews, she was sort of talked about as the potential target. But all we know from the show, and when I'm watching it, I'm like, if she's like crying when it is revealed to be safe, I'm like, girl, your name has not even been mentioned. Like, what are you so happy about? Like, you just
the
wasted
editors
it.
did it dirty. If her name was
They
being floated
definitely
about, they did it. I would be pissed if I was her.
They definitely did her dirty if that's true, that she actually was discussed as a target. Yeah, really disappointing. And Matthew also playing it, I've got some theories about that.
Let us know.
Bizarre.
What do you think? Why do you think
I
he played
think
it? Because I'm very interested because, you know, for me, the only thing that makes sense is that somewhere down the line, Brandon and him, they had a chat to say, play your idol. There is a chance people are coming for you, and I'm going to play my shot in the dark because I might be in danger if you do play your idol. Like, I feel like that conversation must have happened. Otherwise,
yeah,
that alliance might be no longer. Like, how can Brandon trust him at this point? He didn't have his vote or his backing here.
Yeah, I think so. My theory is that, yeah, he discussed it with Brandon, told him, hey, they're voting for you, play your idol. I'm going to play my shot in the dark because then it won't be revealed that I told you, basically.
Yeah.
But I think I might be underestimating Matthew there, because what he could have done is just voted for Brandon, but still told him to play
his idol. That would have been smarter. That would be way smarter.
So maybe I'm...
But then again, also just putting it out there, that in a potential tribal council where 2 people could be safe, that means only 4 people potentially is in danger of going home. That is some risky business. And also one of the reasons why some people might like the craziness of this first tribal council. I reckon, you know, having a tribe of 6 is what brought this out. I'm not a fan of the 6 tribe sort of makeup right now, because it sort of produces this crazy gameplay that almost is hard to follow, Kahuna.
Yeah, it does. I think I actually didn't pick up. I didn't theorize that Brandon and Matthew had that conversation. I thought Matthew was freaking out that he is the second strongest person on his tribe, and he's now got 1 arm, and he's shown that he fell off a cliff. And I was wondering if he was paranoid that maybe his tribe would see that as, you know, dangerous to them, or now he's kind of useless, that he can't actually help them. He sat out on a challenge where they needed the most physical strength. And I think it was probably just a self-preservation thing. And then I think if Brandon saw him play it, because he wasn't first, he saw all this crazy shit going on, multiple shot in the darks happening, including the person that said he's voting with him. And I think he's just, I have to play it now because I don't know what just changed in this scenario here. And I think it was just a protection thing. I don't think they pre-planned that at all. Matthew was worried. Like you said yourself, Jake, he may not be the most strategic player on the island. Now, I've sort of heard people saying that it's galaxy brained of him to actually come out of tribal without any blood in his hands. and he actually did it for that reason. That he didn't pick a side. He can now, and I don't know about that. I think he was just worried that he was genuinely scared that he's hurt himself to the point where his tribe will see him as a weakness and get him out. So I think that's what it was for me. But
see, we're still trying to figure it out right now.
I think that's a good theory. I think that's another good theory. I think that may even be more likely than what I said. That tribe is just kind of a mess. Honestly,
hopefully the next episode will make it all clear. To me, they're a bit of a hot mess, tribe at the moment. Dolores says Jamie was close to Maddie and Brandon. I feel she played it in order to have no blood on her hands and not to have to make a choice. That could be.
She doesn't think. I don't think she thinks that hard. She literally said, "I'm gonna manifest winning with boop boop boop."
Yeah,
I win Survivor. Boop. She's not thinking that hard, man.
Christian says, "Shot in the dark should never come back for a future season." I agree. I'm over it now. Too many different elements in the game now takes players' votes away, and them having a vote is what makes the game interesting. Yeah, like that's what makes the game interesting. So you should never have a premiere episode decided by one vote, in my mind. One vote should not determine who goes home. Kay says Matthew might have thought that he was target number 3. I agree. That's probably why he was a bit nervous. 4PV Cardi says apparently Brandon and Lauren are close, according to Maddie, and Maddie wanted to separate them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read that Lauren actually told Maddie in private about her advantage and told Brandon. She only told 2 people. She told Brandon and Maddie. And Lauren told Maddie, "Hey, I also told Brandon." And she was like, "Well, there's just another reason why I want him out. I don't want him to be stealing my ally because she can't really work with both of us since me and Brandon clearly don't really want to work with each other." So that was just even more, that gave her even more push to try to vote out Brandon.
Yeah. Cardi says 2 tribes away better. Agree with that as well. Dolores says, "Couldn't he always make me laugh?" It makes me laugh sometimes as well. Can be funny every now and again. Chris says a lot of articles are saying that this is the first time Shot in the Dark was successful, but it wasn't. She was marked safe, but no votes were cast for her anyway, so it's a waste. True. Yeah, no one did vote for her in the end. So it kind of made it look like she didn't need to do it in the first place. Let's talk about Brandon here, right? Even if he was in the dark and he didn't know votes was coming his way, I think the point where 2 players potentially are not up for grabs when it comes to a vote, and one of those players being the person you think you're the closest to in the game, at that point, it became obvious that you play your idol, right, Jake? Like, I mean, you don't hold on to that bad puppy. No one wants a souvenir. You want to stay in the game.
Oh, yeah. I don't blame him at all, clearly. But even if he didn't end up getting any votes, I wouldn't have blamed him because that's just such a crapshoot of a tribal with all the no votes and shot in the darks that you just play it. Just why not? How many times has an idol actually been like, if I didn't have that idol, I wouldn't have won the season? We see recently where.
When was the last successful idol play?
Actually, in episode 1.
Yeah, like when was the last successful idol play in Survivor? Now that I think about it, because we get all these advantages, but I feel like it's just been a flop for the last couple of seasons. No one has actually played an idol effectively. I can't remember the last time it's been successful. In the chat, anybody in the chat know when the last successful idol play was? Like, we get all these advantages. I just don't feel like it gets used all that often and actually amounts to anything. So hats off to Brandon for playing it correctly in this episode. Mm-hmm. Kahuna, where does this leave this tribe now? They try to get rid of the most physical player, a person that adds so much strength to the tribe. Do you think they go back for Brandon after this, or do you think they leave him alone and come to their senses? Is Kane in the most trouble as the only person left in the game that voted for him?
I love that Kane was the only one saying, he was the one saying, "Let's not vote for Brandon. We need the strength. And I just want to be on the right side of the numbers." And he did both of them wrong. I think that's great. I think he's in trouble. I think Kane is in trouble because Brandon and Matthew And you said, I didn't know that Lauren had shared with Brandon as well. So there's obviously something going on there to the point where she trusts to give him that information. We know Matthew and Brandon are strong from the thing. So yeah, Kane's in big trouble if they go back. And if they go back soon, I don't see that Kane has enough runway.
It's looking difficult for Team Chris here. It's looking difficult because what have we had? We've had Jake lose his first player and Bruce. I end up losing a person who I was very high on. I thought Maddie, if she got past this first vote and got any kind of grip in the game, I think she could have been a very big player. And I think that we as the audience are worse off with Maddie being out of the game personally, because I think she would have brought exciting gameplay to the rest of the season. So I'm sad to see her go here. So if the next person that's in trouble is Kane, my team is starting to look a little bit flaky here at the moment, and it's making me very, very nervous.
And you've also got the showmans and oh, mate.
Yeah, I'm in trouble. I'm in big trouble here.
But you do have Yam Yam.
I do have Yam Yam. Yam Yam is like and also I'm feeling high on Helen. Helen and Yam Yam, I feel very
Helen
high
seems
on.
to be in a good spot right now. I think that I don't know. Do you guys think that like Maddie like really, really messed up? Or do you think that like she just got unlucky? What do you guys
I
think?
think personally, I know we as fans are very results focused, and people will say she went out there, she overplayed her hand. It's a 6-person tribe, you know, so I think it is very difficult. And if you sit back, the game can also move past you and you end up falling out of the numbers in any case. So I feel like she made a decision that could have worked if Brandon didn't play his idol. They had 2 people voting on him. Maybe the vote should never have gone to Brandon. They should have been fearful of the fact that he could play that idol. But I think that's another reason Matt could have played his shot in the dark, thinking, well, if they want to put the vote on an ally of his, I'm that person. So it's hard. If we were results focused, she definitely overplayed. But like I said, if she got past this one vote, I think she could have been in with the money to go pretty deep. Also want to just bring up here that Gabe said that the last time an idol was played correctly was Winners at War, Natalie.
Wow.
So that's back in season 40.
Yeah. It was when Natalie and Ben played both played their idols at the final 5.
This is what makes Survivor US so interesting, because they've continued to add more advantages and idols to the game and all these different things. But less and less, because of all these different twists coming into the game, people are actually able to play it correctly, which is very interesting to me as well. Gabe says, Kane is Canadian. They've done well so far in 40s. Yep, they have. He's got, you know, well, you can also say law of averages. He might be the person who brings it down a little bit this season, Jake.
2 out of 3 seasons that had Canadians in it, a Canadian won.
Yeah.
Because 43 didn't have any, and then Island of the Idols had one Canadian, that older guy.
I forgot his name. Yeah.
Tom, I think. And then 41, 42. So
hey Jay, welcome to the live. All right, we're gonna get into points real quick here. And I love doing the draft a little bit differently this season with 3 teams. I think it's gonna make it really exciting. And I can tell you that the difference between first and third place is less than 10 points at this stage.
Oh, wow.
So it is a tight race in the beginning of this season. So I'm hoping we get a really good competitive season. For those that are new to the channel that have never seen us do a draft here on the channel, thanks to Angel Cake, Drew, who came up with an algorithm and a point structure for our challenge fantasy drafts, I have come up with one for Survivor, and I kind of copied it off his. And the points that we get for our players, we get 1 point each for a confessional, 5 points for team challenge wins, 8 points for individual immunity wins, 5 points for making the merge, 10 points for a successful advantage play, 5 points for an advantage find, minus 0.5 for a vote against them. Runner-up gets 25 points. The winner gets 50 points. And we've got bonus categories, each worth 25 points at the end of the season, which is going to be for most confessionals, most individual immunity wins, most advantages found, least votes casted against them, and most advantages played correctly. I'll bring up the spreadsheet in a second for those that do want to see it. But we've got a tie in first place, guys. Both teams on 66 points for week 1 is Team Kahuna and Team Jake at 66 points each. Obviously, Jake takes the early L in losing Bruce, so that's going to hurt a little bit for points next week, which puts Kahuna kind of in the driver's seat at this point. But top players in Kahuna's team at the moment is Sarah at 15 points, taking the top spot for you. And then on second and joint third, so second is Heidi, joint third is Danny and Joss. Heidi obviously had a really good go at making fire this episode. Showed the boys how to do it out there, which was pretty impressive. Yeah. And then looking at Jake's team, he's got Brandon at the top spot with 21 points and Lauren on 15 points.
Wow.
Yeah. So Lauren on 15 points. And who else do we have that's sort of good? Claire comes in at third at 12.
I've got Purple Josh.
You've got Purple Josh. 100%.
Josh got a purple edit. He got a purple Kelly, didn't he?
But he did get 2 challenge wins. So
Yeah,
Josh did get 2 challenge wins, which helps a little bit. We'll talk about that in a sec. So for Team Chris, I have got Matt with the highest points for the first episode at 21 points. Matt had a lot of confessionals, 2 wins, and he found an advantage, which gave him a bit of points here in this specific one. Oh, no, sorry, didn't find an advantage. It's not in there. So 11 confessionals, 2 challenge wins gives him 21 points. And then in second place, I've got Franny at 14 points. And then there's a big gap between first and second to third, which is Yam Yam at 7. You'd be surprised. Only has 7 confessional points because to win the challenges, you have to be the outright winner. Second place does not give you challenge points in the competition so far. So let me just bring this up so we can maximize it. You guys can have a bit of a look.
Is there going to be points for when Matt and Franny get together? The showman.
We should have. Like, if this was the challenge draft, Drew always have makeout points in there. So if they were to make out, like, I think I would have had some bonus points. But sadly,
he's scoring.
I'm not the romantic type. I didn't put it in there. And Survivor, you very rarely get it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Do I get any points for Matthew falling off of a cliff? Is that in there either?
We should have subtracted.
In my
points
heart,
for that. We should have subtracted, not
Come
given
on,
points for
Chris.
this.
You got to give me something.
All right, let's have a look here at what the live audience is saying before we wrap it up. Tara says Tom Laidlaw was an old hockey player. Hockey player was never going to do well. That's true. Kona says it's Aussie abbreviation. So Christian says there's a rumor that Survivor 45 and 46 will be the last time filming Fiji, and 47 onwards might be a different location due to the change in government and Fiji politics. That's interesting because when you listen to Jeff's podcast, he talks about the fact that they've built a whole town just for Survivor production. Yeah, so they've got their own town in there. They've set up over the years, and I am excited to see them go somewhere else because, you know, even though it's not the make or break and having Survivor is always more important than where it's being filmed, I would like to see a different backdrop personally. So I would
Survivor Antarctica.
That will never happen because they'll freeze to death. They need them to be walking around in their bathing suits.
Bikinis, yep.
Jay says, where would they go to? Christian Gal? Not too sure. I think Samoa could be an option.
Probably.
Dolores says, Chris, just to give you hope, Yam Yam from episode 1 is getting a Gabler vibe. He has a lot of content episode 1. Yeah, he had 7 confessionals, which is not even in the top 4 confessionals for the episode. The person with the most confessionals was Brandon.
He was the first talk though with Jeff on the beach,
right?
And isn't that like a thing?
Apparently, every winner, not every. I think every winner of the 40s has talked to Jeff on the mat, like on the opening.
Really? Yeah,
I think
is that the giveaway?
It might
That's
be.
The giveaway. Lachlan's Land says Survivor Town. I think if Fiji is smart and, you know, even Survivor, they should keep it intact, even if they move, and then open it up to visitors to go and check it out, like a museum for Survivor.
Historical site.
Yeah. Chris is growing up. I loved seeing all the different locations that Survivor filmed in. I look forward to a change. Yeah, same. I really miss the change. In fact, it's one of the reasons I've really enjoyed Australian Survivor this season because it's in Samoa and it looks beautiful. And it's just a different, like it's both island locations, but there are a difference in those two locations as well, if that makes sense. I would hate Survivor in the cold weather, 100%.
Because they would be just huddled up over the fire, just like this the entire time. They wouldn't even like be really socializing like one-on-one very much. I think that would be bad.
100%. Well, that's it here for episode 1 coverage. Like I said, be sure to, we had a great live audience here, about 40 people. Be sure to check out for the time that we're going to be doing this with Omar. At this stage, I've locked him in for Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and there will be a link coming up for that as well. But be sure to jump in live when we do have Omar on, and bring your questions, because I'm going to be bringing your questions up to Omar, for the season as well. That's why we love doing the podcast a little bit different here on the Nullified Take channel. We want to get you, the audience, involved, and we want to try and answer as many questions as we can from you as well. So be sure to be here. Also, for anybody else that is watching this at a later stage, be it on the audio version, we've just hit 200 followers on Spotify alone for audio listens as well. We appreciate all of you as well. Be sure to jump on the YouTube channel, give it a follow, give it a subscribe to help the channel grow, because that's where we're sort of seeing the most growth at this stage. We're getting very close to 1,600 subscribers. Help us get there. It'll be amazing. And be sure to subscribe, hit like, leave a comment below, and let us know what you thought of the episode and your thoughts. We'll be back next week to talk about the next episode of Survivor. See you guys, and have a good evening. Bye.